Those, along with many other New Testament passages, speak of the present work that God is doing through the church. And at this point, the Lord abandons the image of vineyard and amplifies this image of the Messiah as a stone so as to pronounce this heavy warning. He says in verse 44, whoever falls on this stone will be broken, but on whoever it falls, it will grind him to powder. Again, you need to know your Old Testament. That's why we study it so, unceasingly. But several Old Testament prophecies, Isaiah chapter 8, Daniel 2, with the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, all portray the Messiah and his coming to earth like this stone, upon which people are either broken upon it or under it, and they're going to be ground to powder. Here in the context, Jesus is speaking of himself as the stone rejected by the builders. But due to that rejection, he becomes the chief cornerstone, something that causes people to marvel, wonder, how could such a thing be? Well, as Jesus is pointing out, it didn't come out of nowhere. The whole scenario was carefully laid out in advance. And once this message of the rejected Messiah becoming lost humanity's Savior, through his death and burial, resurrection, once that marvelous gospel has been heard, I either humble myself so as to be broken by casting myself upon him, or I reject his gracious offer to my own eternal destruction. It's called being ground to powder here. He's either the rock of salvation or he is the rock of judgment. That's my choice. But however people respond, Jesus is saying he will be the determining factor for every person's eternity. Every knee will bow and every tongue shall confess Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father, Philippians says. Everyone will bow either in humble submission now or under his judgment after I die. And it says, now when the chief priests and Pharisees heard this, his parables, they perceived he was speaking of them. It's like, whoa, dude. And when they sought to lay hands on him, they feared the multitude because they took him for a prophet. So the light goes on. He's talking about us, Instead of repenting and seeking forgiveness, they were ready to violently seize him and kill him. But they feared the multitude. See, that's how it is for many people. What does the crowd say? What's the popular opinion? That's what determines many people's behavior, peer pressure. Well, I want to look cool. I want to be cool. Do these things. You'll be cool all the way to hell, man. That's how it was, and it's not cool in hell, by the way. But that's how it was with these guys.